Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Carol Musil, Dean of the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate two remarkable graduates of our esteemed School of Nursing, Ruth M. Anderson and Ronald L. Hickman, Jr. Endowed professorships are the highest academic awards that a university can bestow on a faculty member. They're powerful tools for recruiting and retaining the highest quality faculty members. It may be no surprise to you that FPB, internationally regarded for its legacy of leadership and innovation, has the most endowed professorships of any school of nursing in the country. Today's chairing ceremony inaugurates the 15th endowed professorship and installs our Associate Dean for Research, Dr. Ronald L. Hickman, Jr., as the first Ruth M. Anderson Professor of Nursing. The idea for the Ruth M. Anderson Professorship began in 1991 as a collaborative effort between the school and a pioneering donor. Today, we come together to honor its formal establishment and to express our gratitude as a school to its namesake. While endowed professorships are prestigious honors for the faculty member, they're an enduring tribute to the donors who create them. They're a lasting legacy that can touch generations of students and scholars. By funding endowed chairs, donors can convene the brightest minds to focus on a particular problem or issue and spur advances in those areas that are of interest to them. Let me tell you a bit about Ruth Anderson. Ruth Mapes Anderson was born in Cleveland, Ohio on September 6, 1920. She was a double alum of the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing, earning her MN in 1945 and her MSN in 1954. She received her PhD in organizational theory and behavior from Cornell University in 1966. During her career, Dr. Anderson worked at multiple health systems, including university hospitals and the Cleveland Clinic, where she served as the Assistant Director of Nursing and supervised the surgical unit. Dr. Anderson was also a veteran, serving in the U.S. Navy from 1945 to 1946, and from 1950 to 1952, where she served as a lieutenant during the Korean War. She served in Japan and Guam. Her career as an educator began in 1954 at Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing as an assistant professor. Initially hesitant in her new role, Dr. Anderson quickly fell in love with teaching and was recognized for her years of dedication and service in 1985 when she was given the title of Professor Emerita by the Case Western Reserve University Board of Trustees. Ruth Anderson was a tall and elegant woman and a smart and gently persuasive leader who served as Associate Dean at FPB for a number of years. She passed away in 2016, and we are grateful that her family, friends, and former colleagues are here in her honor. Thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and memories of her. Now, let me introduce Dr. Shirley Moore, Professor Emerita of the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing, who will be reading a letter from Dr. Sarah M. Anderson, Ruth's niece.
So this is, I'm reading a letter verbatim because it's beautifully written, and I want you to capture all the spirit in this letter. It's written by Sarah M. Anderson, who is a niece of Dr. Anderson. Thank you, Dean Musil, for allowing me to speak on this joyful occasion, the appointment of the distinguished Dr. Ronald L. Hickman, Jr. to the inaugural Ruth Mapes Anderson Professorship at FPB. I know how pleased my Aunt Ruth would have been to see her gift not only fulfilled, but also in motion at this institution of nursing where she spent her working life and which she cherished. I know, too, that my aunt would have not likely wanted any fuss about her on this occasion. A strong cup of coffee, she would have said, and some bracing conversation. That's what is needed, but no fuss. So as I praise my aunt today for all she did to further good nursing and remember her for the extraordinary woman she was, I know that what I hear in my ear is not tinnitus, it's my Aunt Ruth shushing me. But allow me a few words, Aunt Ruth, about you, for you did so much for all of us, and you are missed profoundly by all of us who knew you and whose lives you changed. I was the luckiest kid in the world to have had an aunt like Aunt Ruth Mapes Anderson, my aunt who was patient, perceptive, and long-suffering, but who was also wildly funny, almost goofy, and game to do almost anything. In the last several decades of her life, we came to know each other as adults. I had gotten my PhD from Cornell, as had Aunt Ruth, maybe in large part because she had sneaked a teenage me into her room at Sage Hall, and we together had breathed the heady air of academics high above Cayuga's waters. Before she died, she gave me her doctoral regalia from Cornell as a spare, and with a keen knowledge of her clumsy niece tripping over her robes too, I think. In those years, we both wanted to gather up every bit of time that was left to us to talk and remember. We conversed about her interests in chemistry, biology, zoology, and in the vast problem of taxonomy of scientific knowledge. And we talked of some other of her interests as well: classical music, golf, early Prince, and bridge, at which she was ruthless and which she despaired of me never quite learning. I asked her, considering her aptitude and continued interest in science, why she had not wanted to become a medical doctor instead of a nurse. Her answer was characteristically clear and straightforward and just a tad wry. Because I wanted to help people, she declared. I think that you'll agree that she did. In this year of the nurse, we are more than ever in need of nurses who hew to that incredibly difficult idea of helping people. We face hard times right now, right here in Cleveland. Another cannily adaptive global virus, the undermining of the repeated truths of science, the thinning of public service and public health programs, and our devastating distrust of each other. As I understand it from my aunt, these are ills that a nurse would run right at. My aunt would have. One afternoon, during the last months of her life, while we were going through files of academic papers and addresses she had delivered, I asked my aunt about the specific components of an FPB education. I began, Aunt Ruth, what kind of training do you think most important for a nurse who, well, I didn't get to finish my sentence. Training, my aunt said briskly, is not the word I would use. We educate our nurses at FPB. I stood corrected. It was not techniques and tools alone that an FPB nurse should possess, but rather the ingathering of all of the arts that make a nurse charitable and compassionate, skillful and brave. Not only techniques and tools, but the discovery of the deep shared human. My aunt's words describe a remarkable brief for a 21st century school of nursing. But then FPB is a remarkable school of nursing. May it remain so. As we inaugurate the Ruth Mapes Anderson Professorship this afternoon, I ask that we remember my aunt's generosity, foresight, and loyalty to nursing as we go forward, each in our own ways, to care for each other. Thank you, Sarah M. Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Moore, for sharing those beautiful words from Sarah Anderson about her aunt. Next, we're going to have just a brief schedule change here. Dr. May Wykoff, who is a colleague of Dr. Anderson, a mentor to Dr. Hickman, and to me as well, has asked if she could switch places so that she can tell a story that is relevant to our celebration today. So, Dr. May Wykoff, also Professor Emerita.
Thank you, Dr. Musil, and greetings to all my colleagues and faculty and staff and students and alumni. I'm very pleased to be here at the celebration of the Ruth Mapes Anderson Professorship and the appointment of the inaugural chairholder, Dr. Ronald Hickman. Dr. Ruth Anderson was a wonderful person. She was a wonderful teacher, an expert in nursing administration. She held the position of Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at FPB. And prior to being on the faculty, of course, as we heard, Ruth served as a nurse in the U.S. Navy, which probably accounted for her very erect posture. I first met Ruth in an interview to enroll in the nursing school's RN to BSN program. And I was pregnant at the time and really anxious about being accepted. But she was very calming with her sense of humor, and she was very kind to me. Ruth Anderson championed students. For example, and this is a story I wanted to tell about Dr. Albert Niwahi. Dr. Niwahi came from Africa, and he was the first African student to graduate with a PhD from the FPB School of Nursing. And when he came to study in this country from Nigeria, he brought his entire family, including his children, and I see Blessing is in the audience today, and we'll get back to Anderson. Anyway, he was coming from Nigeria and was not aware that it was winter in Cleveland. And the trees were all bare, and he said to his wife, "Do you think they've had a fire recently?" And he looked at the ground, and there was snow on the ground. He said, I thought that must have been, is it snow? And Charity said to him, it's not. I mean, he said, is it sand? And Charity said to him, it's not sand, it's snow. And so I think it was important because he had come, they did not have coats and warm clothing. And Ruth Anderson took them under her wing and saw to it that they had warm clothing and coats and a place to stay. And she continued to mentor Albert and support him through his studies at FPB. He got his MSN and his PhD at the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing. He and Charity were so grateful to Dr. Anderson that they named their son, born in Cleveland, Anderson, after Ruth Anderson. And he's here today, and he'll probably speak later, but would you stand so people can see Anderson? And Ruth was so pleased. I mean, she was really taken aback that someone would carry on her name. Later on, Ruth broke her arm. Some of you might know this, broke both of her arms in a fall. And then she learned firsthand her appreciation for quality nursing care. She was fiercely loyal to FPB, and every year she gave at least $5,000 to the school's annual fund, and more if we needed to balance the budget. She was just such a generous person. Later, when she was ill at Judson Park Nursing Home, Nora Hennessy from Development and I visited her. And I suggested to Ruth that she had been so loyal to the FPB School of Nursing that perhaps she would want to endow a chair in her name so that she would be remembered in perpetuity. She responded, "Oh, I never thought about that. I'll speak with my niece and lawyer." And of course, the rest is history. I know that she would be pleased and proud with the celebration today and with Dr. Ronald Hickman as the inaugural chairholder. Dr. Hickman is so deserving of this honor because of his contributions to FPB and to nursing. He's an excellent nurse, and he'll probably shoot me, but if you ever need any advice about a health situation, Ron Hickman is the go-to person. He is the source. So congratulations, Ron. And I think this is a perfect occasion to celebrate during the Year of the Nurse. Thank you.
And now we would like to introduce Dr. Anderson Nowihe to say a few words.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Wykoff, for the great story about my parents. So Dr. Ruth Anderson, she was instrumental in helping my parents assimilate in the US. They came to the United States. It's a new culture. It's hard to get used to the weather. It's hard to get used to a lot of things, but Ruth welcomed us with open arms. She sponsored my mom's master's education, and she even took my entire family to their first movie, which was Chariots of Fire. This was before my time. She always invited them to Thanksgiving and to her Christmas dinners at her house because she was just such a sweet person. I call her Ruth, not out of lack of respect, but just because of that's what we knew her by, because she was just the lovely lady who gave us presents, who I remember just feeling like warmth and love when I was in her house. And she bought us a nice encyclopedia. I think it was a 1995 encyclopedia book. And it was like a series of 28 books. And this dates myself a little bit, but that's how we learned. You read through the encyclopedia. So I don't remember the specifics, but I do always remember that there was a glow whenever we mentioned her name to my parents. And my mom passed away last year, and my mom's, the big mantra for my mom was education and really making sure that we got the best education possible. So I'm a MIT and Stanford trained PhD. And as Dr. Hickman, I also work in using technology to provide better ways for managing rare diseases and end-of-life care. And I say this not as a boast for myself, but as a boast for the people who laid the groundwork before me. So for my parents, who I love dearly, and for Ruth Anderson, who opened the door for my parents. So I just want to leave this short, but I want to say that Dr. Hickman and I will continue to make Ruth proud and live her name. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Nowihe. That was wonderful. And thank you for joining us here today. Next is our guest of honor, and that is Dr. Ronald Hickman, the inaugural chairholder of the Ruth M. Anderson Professorship.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dean Carol Musil, the faculty, staff, and students of the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing, colleagues from across the university, family, and special guests, welcome and thank you for all attending this ceremony. I am both honored and humbled by you being here this afternoon. I am honored because you are joining me today is a reflection and affirmation of your support and your confidence in my ability to make a significant and sustained contribution to the advancement of the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing and Case Western Reserve University. I am also humbled because as I reflect in the title of my presentation, Realizing the Possible, I did not grow up thinking that an occasion like this was in the realm of possibility for someone like me. As a child and young adult, I did not experience the overt practices of racism and discrimination like the generations before me. Many of society's overt signs of opportunities prohibited or legally sanctioned segregation have been removed. But there are far too many subtle messages for young people in our society that stifle their ability to dream and seize what is possible. In particular, young people of color often hear numerous external voices proclaiming, "You won't," "You're not ready," or the phrase that I've heard numerous times, "You're not smart enough." These powerful messages expressed by those who should inspire young people, overwhelm and overpower that inner spark that in all of us that says, maybe I can. My story of becoming a nurse and a nurse scientist is one of realizing the possible. As a young person, I internalized the many external messages from teachers, counselors, even faculty, and lived in a state where becoming a nurse, a scientist, an educator didn't seem possible. It didn't seem possible because throughout my academic journey, from high school through college, nurses and scientists of color were somewhat invisible to me. My story of becoming a nurse and a scientist is one where my family and a host of mentors helped me to realize all of the possibilities that lie ahead. However, far too many young people don't have the support they need to realize their visions of what is possible. Next slide, please. Without question, the person that I am has been shaped by my family and many of you. As a child growing up on the east side of Youngstown, Ohio, my parents, grandparents shared a few lessons that they learned. Although I may not have been the easiest child to raise, I heard these key messages. The first of these messages was that education is a commodity and opportunity to better myself and my community. The second message was that to be successful in life, work hard. And sometimes I would have to work harder than most to achieve the same end. The third message centered on respect, and that I should give respect to others and earn their respect along the way. Admittedly, I may not have always heeded those messages in my youth. I embraced the principles embedded in them every day. Next slide. Becoming a nurse, and this is before the smartphone, so I couldn't find me at the bedside. Becoming a nurse was an unexpected career choice, which may seem odd coming from the guy who is a self-proclaimed decision scientist. My choice of being a nurse is the result of a chance encounter with Dr. Patricia McDonald. During my senior year of my undergraduate studies, after an impromptu visit to the School of Nursing facilitated by my dear friend, colleague, Dr. McDonald, I realized the possibilities of what becoming a nurse could afford me and genuinely have not regretted my decision. For nearly a decade, I worked in cardiothoracic and surgical intensive care units at university hospitals, providing nursing care to the critically ill patients and their families. The environment of the intensive care unit best described as high tech and high touch. My experience providing care as a registered nurse, as an acute care nurse practitioner to those critically ill patients and families interconnected with my research. As a nurse scientist, my program of research principally focuses on how patients, their family members, make decisions about their health care. Next slide. End-of-life decision-making is a phenomenon that has and will impact just about everyone in this room. At some points in our lives, you will, or a family member will, be asked to make a decision that affects your health care. In the ICU, patients, are often too sick to make those decisions for themselves, and often a spouse or an adult child will be asked to make healthcare decisions for a loved one. The decisions that these family members make range from consent to a diagnostic procedure. It can also entail the placement of a feeding tube or the initiation of palliative or hospice care. Over the years, I've conducted several studies to help family members of the critically ill patients and their family members make informed decisions through the use of technology-based solutions. My early studies pilot tested motivational interviewing as a form of decision counseling, and I've pilot tested interactive technology to promote advanced care planning. My current National Institutes of Health funded project focuses on the use of serious game technology to expose family members of critically ill patients to a virtual coach who can offer informational and emotional supports. Discovering effective strategies to support patients and their family members is a public health priority and is essential to nursing science and practice. Every day, nurses interact with patients and families and provide informational supports to help them make informed choices about their health. However, there are few evidence-based strategies that nurses and other healthcare professionals can implement to help patients and families wade through those complex and often irreversible decisions. My research with colleagues is helping to create an evidence base to support the science and the practice of decision support for patients and families in the ICUs and across healthcare contexts. As my research program focused on patients and families faced with healthcare decisions has matured, I have also been able to turn my attention towards informing national and international conversations that aim to move the needle on enhancing diversity of the nursing workforce and the future of nursing science and practice. Next slide. I've had many highlights in my career thus far, and I think there's many more to come. I've accepted invitations to serve on advisory groups and committees for the National Institutes of Nursing Research to inform its current strategic plan. I've served on invited panels for the American Association of Colleges of Nursing to put forth new and innovative ideas for training the next generation of nurse scientists. Additionally, it has been important for me to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in our profession. I have worked with several local and national organizations to enhance diversity in all of its forms and create more inclusive learning and clinical environments. It has been an honor to be selected as an emerging scholar in health and medicine by the National Academy of Medicine and serve as a representative for nursing and on national committees for this organization focused on pressing health concerns that influence science, practice, and health policy. More recently, Dr. Fitzpatrick and I were invited by the Korean Nurses Association to provide expert opinion on strategies to effectively address the need for more nurses in South Korea, as well as collaborating with international colleagues to potentially replicate my studies in other parts of the world. As a mid-career clinician, scientist, and educator, I'm excited about what lies ahead for me, the school, and our profession. Next slide. With foresight and steadfast commitment to the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing, Dr. Ruth Mapes Anderson provided a gift to the school to help retain future nurse leaders in nursing practice, education, and research. When I asked those who knew Dr. Anderson best, they each described her as a visionary, intelligent, authentic leader who was often impeccably well-dressed. Dr. EdieHalloran commented that Ruth was quiet, but the most outspoken faculty members heard her perspectives. Dr. Anderson was a visionary, a leader, an administrator, and a dedicated supporter of the Francis Payne School of Nursing. And I look forward to continuing living that legacy in her name. In her own words, Dr. Anderson commented that the gift to our school ought to do something that would celebrate the role of teaching and leadership in the profession of nursing and ensure the recruitment of passionate faculty well into the future. I sincerely thank Dr. Ruth Mapes Anderson and her family for their generosity I am looking forward to continuing to have a meaningful impact on the FPB School of Nursing through my ongoing contributions to research, education, and practice. I'd like to also thank, again, Dean Carol Musil for her support and her acknowledgments of my contributions to the school and the profession. My success and ability to contribute to the profession comes from the support of my parents who are here today, Ronald and Desiree Hickman, my grandmother, Jacqueline Moy, my wife, April. My family often experience all of the highs and lows that comes with a career in science and the stealing of my time. So it is particularly special to have them here today. To all of my mentors, which there are many, thank you for supporting me, pushing me, and more importantly, creating spaces for me to be the authentic me. And everyone here who helped me to do my work every day. You know, there are some tireless folks that think they just do their job, but they do their job in a way that helps me be the best person I can be and to lead this school in new directions. To my staff and the Center for Research, thank you. To my research team, led by, really, Mary Lushtag, thank you. Tanya Smith, all of my former and current doctoral students, thank you for your support, but more importantly, for allowing me to learn with you. I would like to close with a few words from the poet Maya Angelou, who I think captures what I describe as my purpose in life. Angelou writes, "What I really want to do is be a representative of my race, of the human race. I have a chance to show how we can be, how intelligent and generous we can be." She goes on to say, "I know that when I am finished doing what I'm sent here to do, I will be called home without any fear or trepidation, and I look forward to doing what I am sent here to do in the future with you." Thank you all.
Great job.
Congratulations again, Dr. Hickman, on a wonderful speech and on your role as an endowed professor. Personally, it's been a pleasure to watch you grow in your career. Many of you don't know, but Dr. Hickman was a student in a PhD class I taught on psychological concepts, and I remember that was where I learned that he had been an ICU nurse in that class and in some discussion we were having. So I've gotten to see Dr. Hickman in many roles. I was on his dissertation committee. We have sat and spent long hours working and writing grants together, and he has truly been just a wonderful collaborator in his role as the Associate Dean for Research. And so I'm truly grateful for that. Your drive, your passion, your insight have really influenced the School of Nursing, and we're very appreciative for that. And we know that you will continue to contribute to the legacy of the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing and continue to make innovators like Dr. Ruth Anderson proud. So congratulations to you. At this point, I would like to invite everyone to the South Winter Garden just outside for a reception in Ron's honor. Thank you.